Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. This is part of the session. Today is part of the AI and risk mitigation project. My name is Anvesha. I'm currently managing this, and this is a sort of a research project where we're talking to people within the Indian industry who are working on various AI use cases across domains such as agri-tech, fintech, health tech, and education. The aim is to discuss these various use cases and various risks that people are coming across while developing the solutions, while deploying them. And these are a variety of socio-technical risks. Similarly, today's session delves into the agri-fintech ecosystem, and the speaker today is Raghu KR from Agrify. He's the CTO there, and he's going to share his experiences in building an agri-fintech solution and the current ecosystem in India. Um, Raghu specializes in agriculture technology and has worked in this field for more than 8 years. He's previously contributed to NGOs such as Rangde and Precision Agriculture for Development. And he's also worked at organizations such as Propin and has helped shape many impactful initiatives. Along with him, we have our moderators today, Rumanu and Rachna. Rumanu is one of our consulting editors for this project and is a researcher at ISB, and Rachna works as a practice lead at she works as a practice lead in financial risk modeling at Crisil. And if anyone from the audience has any questions, please feel free to share them in the chat, whether you're watching from YouTube or joining us through Zoom. Raghu, over to you. You can start with your brief talk, and then we'll move on to the question and answer session, and then the audience can ask their questions as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anvesha. So hi guys, this is Raghu here. Myself, I come with more than 12 plus years of experience building the technology and products, right? So pretty much 8 plus years I've been in agri-tech sector, having built multiple products for various use cases, right? Today's session is very interesting session, basically, to underwrite a farmer or like how do we bring in a farmer for the financial inclusion that we talk about, right? So what I would do is I would go ahead and share a presentation and talk about it for a 5 minutes, explaining how as an agrify we are trying to change the this landscape. I hope my screen is visible.
Your screen is visible, Raghu.
Sure. So, of millions of farmers, let's take an example of Mr. Shankar, who's a smallholder farmer, who is from South India, right? You see, I mean, this farmer is not eligible for getting loans or insurances from the agencies or the institutions, right? Why they're not getting the loans, right? So we will come to that point. But before that, let us see the quantum of this problem. We have more than 150 million farmers, and 85% of them lack for the formal credit. And it's a $180 billion dollar market growing at 10% year on year. Right? Why are the smallholder farmers like Mr. Shankar are vulnerable to not getting the loans or getting insurances? Right? For example, we all, right, whoever is working in the industry or whoever has been earning some kind of a salary, we have some kind of a digital records. For example, we have credit cards, we have some kind of a loan accounts, we get salaries on time, and we get some kind of a history being created when we are transacting, and it is very easy for banks and insurance companies to kind of underwrite us and then give us the loans. But for farmers, it is not the same thing, right? So what happens for farmers? Farming is a seasonal business, right? It is unlike a salaried individual. It's a seasonal business where a farmer only gets income once in a season, which is probably 6 months once or probably once in a year, right? And pretty much the transactions that the farmers do is pretty much offline. The reason being, there can be many reasons that if they have some money in their accounts, they might not be eligible for the subsidies that the government provide, and many such details. This is one side of the story, right? The other side of the story is when a farmer, I mean, pretty much of whoever takes the loan, they think that once they take the loan is going to get waived off, right? So this is a common practice around our country, like, because of this reason, they get hit with the, whatever the credit score that they have. What farmers are thinking is basically the loan waiver is a free money, but it is not a free money, right? So it is basically, when a government comes, they would promise that, okay, I will waive off up to 2 lakh rupees loan or something like that. While waiting for that loan, this farmer is getting more and more ineligible for getting the loans, and it will make them very difficult to get the loans from any sources, right? What at Agrify we are doing? At Agrify, we are partnering with banks and insurance companies to give verified, reliable, and real-time data, right? We have a platform called Sat Insight. So how is our Sat Insight platform going to work? Is that, consider a farmer applies for a loan, and once that is forwarded to the banks or insurances, basically we partner with them and we help them underwrite along with their processes. And in Sat Insight, we have multiple sources of data, right? We have more than 40 parameters that we measure this on, and then we generate an actionable insights, right? Like whether or not this farmer should be taking the loan or not, and how is the history of this farmer in parallel to the existing credit scores that they have, right? And then when we give this comprehensive report, a smallholder farmer, whether or not he is eligible, would be decided, and then it will be in the hands of banks to sanction the loans or not, right? So how are we different? See, basically, there are many companies which are claiming to do the credit underwriting for many different cases. But, like, as a farmer, the farmer is in the junction of agriculture, that he or she wants finance, and as well as some kind of analytics. At Agrify, what we are doing is we are putting all of this together to make a junction where we can use geospatial analytics along with some other data points, and combine with the agricultural insights to enable the farmers for getting the loans. So this is one of the screenshot that I have from our product, right? This is basically displaying you the farm health of a given area. So consider that Mr. Shankar has a farm which is average land holding of a 2.5 acres or something like that. So we can go back in time, like probably 5 years before, what this farmer was growing and how was the crop health in this given area, and what are the other parameters, right? This is one part of it. Like, you get the data for the remote sensing part of it, like the satellite based data, as well as other data, right? Like how far is the road from this given farm, how far is the rail from this given farm, and how is the water conditions, is there a pond nearby, is there a river body nearby, and all of this kind of a data, right? And this and also we can measure and say the possibilities of a drought or possibilities of the flood in this given area. And also, obviously we can do a weather forecast as well. This is something that which is improved a lot in the past. So using all of this data, you can see in the right hand side, we are generating a score, right? This score is, you can call it's a parallel score for the existing formal scores, and this can help farmers to get the loans, and also banks to be able to better underwrite these farmers, right? So this is how we are building it. So, our business model is very simple. We are a freemium model where people can come and register and use the application and try out. Like, our customers are banks and insurance companies. And once they are happy with this, probably they can go ahead and, subscribe to our premium model. So yeah, this is pretty much, this is a very small introduction of what we are doing. Probably, I can take questions and, have a discussion, Rachna and Rumanu.
Rachna, Rumanu, over to you. Any questions?
Raghu, thank you for the presentation. That was really brief and very, very clear. I would ask the audience members if any of them have any questions at this time that they want to ask. Otherwise, there are some discussion points that Rumanu and I have, which we can get started with. So does anybody in the audience have any questions? You could unmute yourself and speak, or put it up in chat. So I think
Rachna, Rumanu, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, there are no questions from any members of the audience. So Raghu, you mentioned that you're sort of, the data that you provide on the credit worthiness of farmers is basically informed through multiple sources. So one of the discussion points is agriculture being sort of a very seasonal business, and credit worthiness of a very small farmer who does not have access to sort of proper irrigation facilities would vary over the course of the year, and would also vary depending on the vagaries of the monsoon. So how does the analytics that you provide incorporate this and provide information on that?
See, there are multiple factors, Rachna. I mean, like you said, right? I mean, agriculture is basically a science. It is just not any business, right? Not just buying and selling. There are a lot of factors involved in it, right? So one, like I mentioned in the presentation, that we rely on satellite-based information to go back in time and understand what this farmer was doing and how was the yield in those years and the consistency of the farming, and as well as topography and all of that we can understand, right? Coming to the second set of the data, that this is something that we can get without actually talking to the farmer. All we need is the geo coordinates of the farm, right? Coming to the second part of the data that we source, basically, I mean, we understand where is this farmer staying, and how are the socio-economic statuses of that given area, right? We understand, okay, what is the worth of this goods. I mean, one of the things that I always discuss is accessibility to the road, right? Most of the farmers, they grow something in the middle of the farm, but they do not have access to the road. And when they do not have access to the road, I mean, their producers will not be picked up by the brokers or the agents that they want to sell into. And these are also the parameters that we seriously consider. And coming to evaluating the farmers personally, right? Like, for example, I mean, if Mr. Shankar that I was taking as an example, if he is not well educated and understands very little about, like, how do we do things, right? So there are tools that we can use. Like, for example, psychometric analysis is something that we can do. It's basically a very, very simple game, kind of a questionnaire that people will ask, like, whether you like it or not. I mean, that is all that farmer has to answer. These psychometric games are designed in such a way that it can give us inference saying that whether or not this farmer is going to repay the loan or not, and what is the intentions behind taking this loan. I mean, there are many cases that farmers take the loan and just go and buy a two-wheeler or something, right? So I mean, is this the intention? I mean, the farmer is really intended to make his or her farm better, or what it is the thing? Like this, there are many other parameters that we can collect, and like I mentioned you earlier as well, we collect this data from multiple different sources. One, I mean, psychometric data is something which is personal to the farmer. However, the data like road, rail, I mean, even we get the data from reservoirs, right? Like, for example, I mean, in a state or in a district, if there is a reservoir, and we also get a live data from the government sources that what is the reservoir level. Right. This will also help us to identify whether or not if somebody is sowing today, by the time of maturity of that crop, the water level in that reservoir is going to be there, or it is going to completely deplete. And all of these predictions is something that we can do, Rachna. Rachna, you're on mute.
That's great, Raghu. So there's one question from an audience member. I think it's Anvesha only who's asking, is it possible to provide a list of banks or insurers who we can go to as farmers?
So pretty much you can go to any banks, Rachna. It's, I mean, there is no specific segment that you can go. But like, I mean, it's an unfortunate that I mean, a situation in our country that, when farmers go to, I mean, very fancy banks, they don't get treated well, right? Basically, I mean, there is some kind of etiquette that people, I mean, for example, I'm wearing the suit. I mean, probably farmers don't wear it, right? They just walk in the way they are, and that is some. I mean, these are the reasons farmers don't prefer going this all these fancy banks. They prefer going to these cooperative banks and all of that. Even I've been a first-hand witness for it, that when a farmer goes to any cooperative banks, how the managers treats them. They literally ask them to sit in the sit outside, and they ask them to, okay, I mean, I'll call you, please be waited there, and all of these kind of scenarios happens. But like, however, it does not restrict farmer to go to any banks. They can go to any banks and request for the services. But like, again, it is a taboo, right? So basically, the moment farmer wants to take a loan, everybody looks at him in the eyes of that defaulter, that he's not going to repay the loan. That is how they look into. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Raghu, just one thing, a follow-up on this. So, India has a good network of regional rural banks as well as cooperative banks, which are directly under the purview of the Reserve Bank of India.
Correct.
Also, several of these are public sector as well, and these are specially geared towards agriculture.
Correct.
So, do you have partnerships with those kind of entities because those are specifically for agriculture?
See, I'll answer this in a different way, Rachna. So what happens is, what we are doing is an innovation, right? So basically, banks are legacy systems which are working 100% fine, and the innovation is something that banks will not immediately accept, right? However, RBI Innovation Hub is trying hard to bring in a lot of things. In fact, we were in talks of doing some kind of a project with them to do a similar kind of a scoring with RBI Innovation Hub. So what happens is, I'll just take an example, right? If banks wanted, they could have become the top players of UPI, and there would not be any Paytm or Google Pay or PhonePe if at all, if banks wanted, right? The entire ecosystem is built in such a solid grounds that there is a little bit of a resistance for the innovations which come in, right? Even when we talk about the partnership that we want to do, it is a long process. It's a very very painful and a long process where you have to go through a lot of compliances and stuff like that. Even then, after 6 or 7 months or 8 months, you might not get an access to their systems where they can communicate through APIs or anything. I'm not completely blaming them. There definitely are reasons of security as well as the stability of the system, something that they look into. It's very unfortunate that the phase in at which it is moving is very very slow.
I see. Thank you for the response, Raghu. Rumanu, over to you. Done with my question.
Raghu, we wanted to discuss with you how you see the perception of the farmers with regards to the money that they come in. You see that there's a trend of them seeing this as free money. So, what's your take on some educational programs to guide them otherwise?
Right. So very interesting question, Rumanu. So this is there is again many angles to it. You might have been seeing that the farmers are flooded with the the loan apps nowadays. Right. So the moment if you have a mobile number, basically you can get a loan as much as 10,000 rupees very easily, right? So what has happened is because of these kind of loan applications, because of these kind of practices that are there, farmers thinks that anybody says that I'm giving a loan, it's a free money, right? They basically think that okay, I'll take the loan and I'll just change the mobile number or something like that. This is how they think. So basically, here the governments have to play a very very important role in explaining farmers, boss. When I'm saying that I'm going to waive off the loan, it is not a free money, right? We care for you. And
Right.
while you are waiting, consider that you're not eligible for getting that loan waiver. Your scores are going to get hit and you will not be eligible for getting the loans in future. And this is a perception which is being built. And this is something that the governments have to very, very actively explain to the farmers and educate the farmers. However, startups try doing that, but farmers are farmers. They don't listen many times. Now the situation is a little bit changing. Even all the graduates are going back and doing the farming, but still it's not yet there, right? And this is one thing. And second thing I was telling in the very beginning, right, that digital footprint of the farmers, basically, right? So what happens is, this is also a misconception that is there in the farmer's head that, okay, if I have a money in my account, I am not eligible for getting this schemes and stuff like that.
Right.
And also government also very, very vocally says that, if, it might come as a surprise to you if a farmer has ever done an IT returns, that farmer is not eligible for PM Kisan Yojan and all of that, right? So it is basically stopping from doing all of this, right? So
Right.
this is a problem. And the governments have to very, very wisely decide, okay, anybody who's doing an ITR filing is not a very rich person, right? You can do a zero ITR returns even when you do not have any income, right? So people have to understand that and probably make such kind of educational policies so that farmers understand it and go forward.
Right. Raghu, we have another question in from the audience. So Ganraj is asking, why not lend to the farmers directly? Won't they make you a modern bank that can lend to farmers directly based on this data?
Very, simple and straightforward question, but the regulatory authorities of somebody becoming a bank is too complicated. I mean, we see what is happening with Paytm, right? So, I mean, such a empire is just breaking into pieces, right? So there is quite a lot that we can do. Then anybody can just not become a bank and go lend. I mean, in fact, you cannot lend anybody without actually having a license or I mean, all this compliance and all of that. So it is impossible at this moment, but I mean, definitely there's always a way for innovation, right? Somebody can figure out a way, probably you can. I mean, there are ways, if you partner with an NBFC, I mean, if you give 100% FLDG, probably then you can give whoever you want, and no NBFC will question anyway. You have 100% FLDG. Yeah.
Right. And Raghu, I wanted to ask you if you wanted to delve deeper into how your credit scoring system accounts for seasonality of farming and how it helps override traditional credit systems.
Right. So, okay. I mean, I can see this question in two different angles. So one is in this, for example, when I spoke about the seasons, different seasons. For example, satellite images that we take during the monsoon season, there is going to be a lot of cloud coverage, right?
Right.
During then, it becomes very difficult to identify the plot or do any kind of retrieval of the data. So these are the times we can fall back into some other set of data, right? Some of the regional parameters, right? And all of this is something that we can alternatively collect and predict based on the history of the crop, right? And as well as now, I mean, there are multiple satellites that we can rely on. It's not only one satellite. I mean, currently Landsat and Sentinel are free satellites. They give the data at 15-meter resolution and 10-meter resolution and all of that. I mean, the frequencies being like 10 to 15 days. But you can probably partner with more and more satellite-based companies which are enterprise in nature. Basically, you'll have to pay more money, and we can do that. Right. So this is coming from the remote sensing part of it. Like, how do we do this?
Right.
Coming to the different, I mean, seasonally, how you are going to underwrite for a different season is, I mean, we are also, I mean, this is something that is a work in progress. Basically, we will have to understand the sentiments of the market, right? For example, I think 3 or 4 months ago, if you see, the tomato prices went up crazily, right? So it went almost as high as 120 rupees, if I remember correct.
Right.
So what happened then? The other side of the world, right? Like this tomato seedlings cost also went up. That means that there was a crazy amount of seedlings were bought by farmers, expecting that, okay, I will become very rich very soon, right?
Right.
So what is going to happen, right? In another 1 month, you probably will witness that the same farmers are going to throw these tomatoes in the road and will be protesting, saying that we are not getting the minimal price.
Right.
So this is something, it's an alarming situation, right? The governments have to, I mean, governments are trying hard to educate this. One is that governments have to try more harder, as well as like an organization like us can underwrite and say that, okay, boss, this is an alarm that, the whole of the world is buying tomato seedlings, and the tomato seedlings went up from almost 10 rupees to 18 rupees. Right. So this is an alarm, and these are the things that we can understand, as well as if there is something risk of a flood or a drought, and this year is pretty much a drought everywhere, right? There is no rain happening. Even some of the major reservoirs are empty, right? This is something that we could predict, right? This is not something that we have to wait for understanding. These are the ways we can build in, and this is basically innovation. Rumanu, it will take time for us to come to a point where we show that accuracy. But at this moment, whatever the data we have, that is more than 80 to 90% accurate. But when it comes to a point of predicting the future, I mean, it needs a lot of work, and a lot of players have to come in place and work together.
Right.
So,
now
Raghu, in terms of the data and analytics that you provide, are you able to, what you mentioned about the tomato seeds is just plain economics, right? It's demand and
Right.
supply. And
Yes.
so if there is suddenly huge demand for tomato plant seeds, then obviously we predict that there's going to be an oversupply of tomatoes, and that could apply to any kind of commercial or cash crops or food crops.
Correct.
Do you track these kind of indicators, and do you also track other economic indicators which could be impacting farmers? For example, the weather in different parts of the country, the sort of modern irrigation, and regionally this could vary a lot, right? Because if you look at the regional economics of India, there are parts of the country where agriculture is really not sophisticated. You don't have mechanization, you don't have irrigation, and there are parts of the country where you have mechanization and irrigation.
Correct. Correct.
So, I mean, how do you account for all of this in the analytics that you provide?
See, I mean, the first part of your question, Rachna, basically, I mean, we are working on a model. We are not yet there. We are working on a model where we're building an NLP-based model where we continuously scrape and source all the news that comes out, and we do a sentimental analysis on that, like what is the sentiments of the market, how is it looking like, and stuff like that. Right. I mean, we take very, very hot keywords from that and make a list of, I mean, we basically weigh it. Okay. Which is, I mean, what is the sentiment of the market looks like over the period of 3 months or 6 months, and how does it look like? So this is something that it's still in a very, very, early stages. Coming to the farm mechanization and all of these stuff, right? So this is something that we can track. Like, there are multiple ways we can track this. I mean, one of the easiest way would be is to see through the satellite imageries, right? So and as well, right? Like for example, some of the advanced countries like UK government has some kind of a system where they detect the pest attack much earlier than it happens, right? Basically, if you take an example, if you consider you're growing any crop which is very, very prone to some of the pest attacks like white aphids or something like that. So these actually fly in the air, right? So if the wind direction is this way, and this is the speed that it is growing, then definitely the data scientists and all this weather experts can tell us that okay, this is going to spread all over this area, and you can take a precautious measures to handle this. Again, I would like to say that it's still a early stage. That I mean, what we are, as well as many startups that are working in this sector, there's a lot of data, right? Agriculture is definitely not like a 1 or 2 or like 10 parameters. There's hundreds of parameters. I mean, something can go wrong and it can destroy the entire crop, right? Like the growing degree days that we talk about, right? If humidity goes down or the temperature goes up, or like it is too much cold, or during the flower season a little bit of a dew or a little bit of a rain will kill all the flowers, and there is multiple factors, right? So it is something that accounted already, and a lot of people have written about it and thought about it, but like as an implementation it will take time to come to that point.
So I totally hear you that in terms of implementation and collecting data on so many different indicators, that can be a challenge. But nonetheless, you provided a very broad perspective on a lot of different potential indicators. So a very, very simple and sort of precise question, right? So if a regional rural bank Shankar goes and applies, and they come to you and they say, provide a report on Shankar, what metrics will you provide to the bank? What will the report have?
So basically, we need some kind of a minimal data, like for example, the geo coordinates of that farm, as well as the survey numbers, and I mean basically every farmer will have their RTC record, one paper they will have in different places. It is called different names. So if we give that, right, basically then we will plot that into the dashboard that we have, and we will do a satellite based data analytics as well as the regional data analytics. We get all of that data, like whatever I said, satellite based data, road, rail, river, and all of this data we get out. Using all of this, we will make some kind of a prediction that like this is the irrigation conditions as well. If around 8 states as of, and if I'm correct, I think 8 states have digitized the farm records so far, right? So what happens is, if I get a survey number, I just have to go into the respective states the databases, and it's open to public in many of the states like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and all of that. So I can go in and see that, okay, whatever is farmer claiming. See here, one problem will happen, Rachna. What happens is farmer, when they apply for a loan, they apply for 4 acres, consider. But in their records, it is not actually 4 acres. It will be 2.5 or 3 acres. Basically, the other 1 acre of land which is there is going to be a kharab land, or like, again, there's a lot of names that people call it for, right? It's basically a land which does not belong to the farmer, but the farmer is cultivating from ages there, right? It is not in anybody's name, or it is a government land. So these are the indicators that are very, very crucial for banks, right? We can tell, okay, there is a deviation from what farmer is claiming and what the geo coordinates are saying and what the RTC records are saying, right? All of these deviations is something that we can easily identify. Unfortunately, again, these data that are available in public, it's not in a programmable way. It's very, very manual. Somebody has to go analyze it and take it out and all of that. But like this is something that we can provide along with the satellite-based data information, as well as you get, like, in the RTC records, consider that a farmer has already taken a loan, right? In a banks like a district cooperative bank or something like that, right? It will be reflecting there in that RTC record unless the farmer repays that loan, right? It will be there right over there, right? Like if a farmer takes a loan from a district credit cooperative bank, or like some cooperative banks which are not so well connected with the system, we will come to know that it is there because it will have an entry. We can collect all of that. You can say the entire portfolio of that farmer. Okay, this is the farmer. This is what the remote sensing data says about. This is what the regional parameter says about. This is what the the real world scenarios, like, it's not 4 acres of land. It's a 2.5 acres of a land, and things like that. Yeah.
Raghu, would you like to talk about some of the UNSDG goals that Agrify is aligned with?
Right. So definitely, right. So when you does an impactful work, I mean, basically farmers are the backbones of our country. When you help them, pretty much automatically everything falls into place. Right. So, I mean, we are aligned with multiple UNSDG goals, like, eradicating the poverty, education, socioeconomic statuses, and many of such kind of parameters. I mean, this is basically a ripple effect, right? Like if you just help them financially inclusive, by making them access to the credit. Like, for example, you see, right? Like I'll just take a general example. There was a time that when somebody has a car in our country was considered to be a very rich person, right? But like now everybody has car, everybody has fancy cars, right? No, everybody easily has a 25-30 lakh rupees car nowadays. That is because they all have the access to the credit, and the lifestyle changes, and I mean, people start living better and stuff like that. But whereas for farmers, this is where they're lacking. The financial inclusion is actually happening in the country, but it is not happening to the farmers, right? So I mean, if you start educating the farmers and include them, it's okay. I mean, anyway, government does so much by giving the subsidies to the farmers, by giving subsidized fertilizers, seeds, and many such kind of things. But like, probably by supporting in startups which are actually trying to impact into the agriculture, I mean, this might help the country as well as farmers to bring in. I mean, financial inclusion is everything basically, right? Like if you bring, their kids will start getting educated. If their kids are start getting educated, they will actually have a better education, better socio-economic status, eradication of poverty, and also I mean, in some cases, you also educate the farmer. I mean, saying that, boss, by putting so much of this chemicals and urea and all of these kind of, the fertilizers, it is not that, you are going to have a bumper crop. Right. It is that you have to understand how effectively you live with the nature, and make sure that your soil is still organic. And I mean, and also governments have to talk, while startups are making an attempt to talk, the application of weedicides, right? So I mean, when you do a weedicide application, basically that entire piece of land dies, right? farmers think that it is just to remove the weeds, bringing in other kind of alternatives. I mean, incentivize them. If somebody is not using the weedicide, government can incentivize them. Like, how in Punjab there's a lot of, burning happens of all this after harvest. Anyway, in their government is trying to incentivize and all of that. The similar kind of exercise should happen all over. And definitely startups like us are there to bring in this kind of inclusions so that, farmers will have a better quality of life.
Right. On that note, how do you think VCs should change their perspective on funding startups like this that are rooted in innovation?
So this is a very interesting question. Basically, India has been in a funding winter for probably a couple of years now. And see, I agree that other startups, like other technologies that are there, like probably they are addressing the very own immediate problems of the consumers, right? So basically gone are those days where innovations are getting funded very easily. There was time, like 10 years ago probably, if you had an innovative idea, there were so many VCs or institutions were ready to fund your startup very easily. But it is not same anymore. It is basically people want to see revenues and the profits on the paper, right? So the kind of innovation that we are doing, it will take a lot of time. So, for example, CIBIL took almost 15 plus years to come to the point it is, right? Startups cannot jump into something which is profitable or having a good revenues on the paper, especially when we are in an agri-tech sector. It will take long time to come to that point. Probably probably after 20 years, every agri-tech startup probably will start as a profitable company. But at this moment, it's an innovation phase where a lot of innovations are happening. Innovations does not give you the result immediately, right? It will take time, and there should be a breakthrough. That is when people will start making profit, and then there will be more such umbrella products will come out from different startups, and the ecosystem will be built.
Right. In the historic sense, money lending to farmers at such high rates has been one of the most
Correct.
haunting problems rural India has faced. So what do you see your impact as being to solving it, towards moving in that direction?
Yeah, see, this is a very interesting question, Rumanu. So if you see, what happens is, even though throughout our country, this is a practice, because of unavailability of the loan, what farmers does is farmers go to the traders. Traders are the first point of the contact that they have. They'll go and say that I need 50,000 rupees. Like, for example, you and me, if you have to get a loan, you can get it in 5 minutes there are many applications. But a farmer, it is not the same, right? They have to go to the traders to get such kind of an availability. Probably it will take a couple of hours. But definitely they will never get it in bank, before 15 or 1 month or 2 months.
Right.
Right. So when they go to traders say, okay, boss, I'll give you the money, whatever you want. In terms of money or in terms of selling the seeds or fertilizer or whatever the necessities that are there. And none of them have a proper digital record. Okay, there is one book that they write saying that Shankar ka itna hai, like that they'll write. So what happens is, after that, when the harvest comes, right, they'll have to, many people will have that kind of a clause, that majority of the people will have that clause that they have to sell it to them, right? Not in the government market and all of that, because they have to repay the loan, right? So they have to sell it to them. And if when they sell it to them, it's much higher interest rate, like, in majority of the cases is as high as 50% and more. That is how much they pay. And there are also these small farmers, right? Like, they go and take the loans, hand loans. They call it hand loans basically, where, every day there is some kind of interest. It is not like annualized interest. It's like every day, if you're taking 100 rupees, 10 rupees. We have seen, when I was working in Rangde, we have seen 100 rupees for 1,000 rupees loan. Basically, in just matter of 10 days, if that person does not repay, it is going to become 2,000 rupees. Right. So these are the practices that are there. The only thing that as startups we can solve is by bringing in a lot of digital intervention, as well as governments helping farmers to understand, right? So, and also easing up certain things. right? Like, why, I mean, when as you and me, we can get the loans in 5 minutes, why not farmers should be able to get loans in 5 minutes? And have some kind of a clauses. But I mean, what traders are doing, they are having a very strict clauses for that, right? Have a
Right.
similar clauses. I understand farmer sentiment is very, very strong sentiment in our country, but like, you cannot just ride on that sentiment forever, right? So you have to make also them feel like they're entrepreneurs. They're basically rural entrepreneurs, right? You start a coffee shop, you call yourself as an entrepreneur, but like, why cannot a farmer who's doing the farming is not an entrepreneur, right? This is how the word has to go out to a farmer. And probably farmers have to understand that, and governments have to put a lot of efforts, and all these fancy free schemes probably have to go out. Right? I mean, I
Right.
remember when I was a kid, I mean, 100 rupees was a labor charge for one person to come for a day and work. Now, even at a 750,000 and 1,250, the labors are not available, right? So what is happening? There's so much of effect. Everybody's getting rice free, oil free, sugar free, everything. Like, it becomes very challenging for an economy to sustain and grow this way. I mean, very less that I mean, startups can do here. I mean, apart from the digital intervention and bringing people on digital medium, but the governments have to play a bigger role here, I believe.
Right. So similarly, when governments come in and they waive off loans beneath a certain threshold,
Yes.
and could you comment on how that affects the credit scores of the farmers and what a company like yours can do to remedy it?
So, see, what happens is, I mean, I have personally seen so many. I mean, we have spoken to so many farmers, right? So, I've personally seen farmers going and taking the loans with no intention of repaying at all, right? So, if it is a loan which is up to some threshold, then it's okay. I mean, they can reset the CIBIL score and all of that can happen, and that is something that it happens basically. But what if you become if you become ineligible for getting that loan waiver, right? What if the next government which comes saying that I'll do the loan waiver will not do the loan waiver? What will happen, right? So it's a simple case that you are not eligible for getting the loans. You are looked at as a defaulter, and like, then the banks people will go and stand in front of the bank, sorry, in their house, and they ask, try to recover the money. Farmer gets upset, and all of those things will happen, right? So as a startup, we can educate and we can probably make this small ticket loans very easier, right? So one of the earlier business model in agrify we had was trader financing. Instead of we going and helping farmers to get the loan, we were giving traders the money at a lower interest cost, telling the traders that you should give the farmer loan at a very lower interest cost,
Right.
right? So
Right.
that is something that we tried, but like, unfortunately, it's not scalable at this moment, at least, because it takes a lot of time and effort for these follow up with these traders. I mean, everybody takes money, but like, documentation,
Right.
repayment, you need to have. If you have some districts, I mean, in a district, if you have consider 7 or 8 taluks, you basically have to have a field staff every place there, right? So it is a very, very resource intensive work, and startups will not have such kind of money that we can go ahead and burn our money there. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that's how it works. I mean, this is one thing we have tried, and second thing we tried was like directly being a DSA, like, by taking the loan application from farmer and directly sending it to the banks. But then, I mean, like I said, now farmer thinks it is a free money, and then there's a lot of leakage as well in the banking systems. Yeah.
Right. So, Raghu, apart from remote sensing, what other areas of artificial intelligence have been incorporated into rolling out?
So this industry, if I have to talk about the as an industry, I mean, psychometric analysis is something which is looked at very, very seriously. I mean, like Rachna was saying, that education is a problem. I mean, yes, it is a problem. But if you see, the smartphone adoption has increased crazily,
Yes.
right? As per our research in 2019, when I was when I was working in precision agriculture, Karnataka had around 33% of the farmers using the smartphone, right? And Gujarat had around 28%, and similarly, like, throughout the country, it was there.
Right.
So from 2019 to, if you see, 2024 now, there's a massive change. I believe Karnataka might be having more than I mean, I do not have data to back it, but Karnataka definitely has more than 50 or 60% of the farmers using the smartphone, right? So psychometric analysis comes very handy. It's basically a game. I mean, we can say that this is a game that you have to play to get some kind of a scores as a reward for you or something like that to assess a farmer. But I mean, you might ask, they might trick the game, like, if somebody who's intelligent, smart, right, they can understand, okay, if I answer this question, I'll not get a good score.
Right.
I mean, there are ways in which there are many companies which are working in having all these psychologists and like qualified experts in this particular segment, who are who are basically helping to build such kind of a questionnaires which are random in nature. It is not that every question goes to everybody. Very, very random question goes to the farmer. Farmer can probably access it and see. And also the spending patterns, right? This is one. The second thing is spending pattern. So one thing which has happened is, I mean, the cash transaction have significantly gone down after from last at least 8 years, right? So it is with, if we go ahead and do a partnership with some of the account aggregator companies, right? So what happens is, account aggregators can help us give the statements of those banks with the consent of the farmers, right? So they will. So what we can do here is, we can go back and see the inter spending history. Like, somebody gets, if some farmer is growing maize in 2 acres of a land, at the current rate, probably they will be earning around 30,000-40,000 rupees. So, like, after removing all their investment, probably they'll earn 25,000 rupees per season, right? All the 25,000, what this farmer has done, if at all, if it has entered into the banking system. And I mean, now at least people keep some money in the banks for sure. I mean, like, unlike the bigger sum of money, definitely they're not keeping the bigger sum of money, but like small money they keep. We understand the spending pattern, whether this farmer is going and buying household things, or this farmer is spending all of this money on liquor and stuff like that, or is he or her investing it in fancy stuff and stuff like that. This will also give us a lot of insights on the spending pattern, like, what kind of a persona this farmer is,
Right.
and stuff like that we can analyze. And people are doing it very actively.
Right. Is there anything else that you would like to delve into? I
uh,
would also like to remind the audience that if there are any questions, to leave them in the chat for Raghu to answer. Yes, Raghu.
Yeah. So one more interesting thing which is happening is, the drones. I mean, there is a lot of drones startups which are coming. So they are also. I mean, some of the questions, right? Like, there are days where, I mean, when I talk about the satellite images, there is. I mean, we had to have a spectrometer, basically using the spectrometer. We could get the different bands of that particular farm and analyze and stuff like that. I mean, there were times, like, there were huge spectrometers, and, like, drones could not carry it and stuff like that. There's a lot of technological innovation has happened. A lot of drone companies are coming up. They're actually bringing in alternative data sourcing mechanisms for all the things that we cannot source, using the remote sensing. Like, when, like I was saying, during the cloud coverage, what will you do, right? These are the times that these people can actually help us. There's a lot of innovation happening. That is also I mean, good thing that is happening in the industry. Probably going forward, I mean, it will be a huge impact. I mean, anyway, they're already dominating in the fertilizer application and the pesticide micronutrient applications, but it can become a big game. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Raghu. And we'll bring in Anvesha back again to wrap this up. Thank you so much for educating us on the
And
level of financial
you.
inclusion that is possible by bringing in alternate credits to existence. That's
Thanks for the interesting questions,
Uh,
Rumanu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raghu, Rumanu, and Rachna. It was a very interesting conversation. With that, we're at the end of today's session. Next week, we have one talk on deepfakes and impacts on Indian politics and policy, which will be on 22nd. That's going to be an online talk. And we also have Tanuja Ganu and Sunaina Sitaram from Microsoft Research, who will be in Bangalore for an in-person meetup at the ID5 office. This is on Saturday 24th. Yeah, Saturday 24th at from 11:30 to 1 p.m. It's in person. If you're in Bangalore, do show up. It's going to be very interesting. If you're not in person, then I believe it will be live streamed as well, and those details will be up soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. That's all for today.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Amisha. Thank you, Rachna. Thank you, guys. See you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.